Good morning. It's me again, Nathan the Oaf. This video, you're going to learn about how to predict the weather by just taking observations. This video is part of a series called Outdoor Knowledge Series. It's the O in Oaf. Well, let's start with a question. Based on this information, I want you to make a prediction. Current temperature, I want to say 3 degrees Celsius. Yesterday's temperature got all the way up to 20 degrees as a high. The clouds are what you see behind me. Okay, that's kind of the gist of the sky, if you can see all that. And there's a wind, a gentle wind blowing from behind me right now, blowing from the east to the west. And currently where I live, typically we get winds blowing from the west to the east. Based on just those 3 bits of information, make a prediction what you think is going to happen. Well, isn't that nice? Somebody left their garbage here. That's beautiful. Seems like a fitting day to bring up this topic. So if you frequent the outdoors, if you're a person who enjoys going in the outdoors, you can't go outside and not care about what the weather's doing. That's kind of a given. You got to know what's going on. And obviously the easiest way to check what the weather's doing is to look outside. But if you're trying to predict the weather and you don't have access to a phone, or you don't have access to any way of checking a forecast, whether that be by radio or whatever means you have, then you're kind of left to just making a guess, an educated guess. Probably the best way to make a guess about the weather is to observe what you see right now and then make a guess for the future. And it's not a bad idea to look at what the last couple of hours or even the last day was like. So let me give some context for today, because it'll actually give you a great idea how to predict what's coming. Yesterday, we had a temperature of around, it was almost 20 degrees. And that's pretty unusual for March here in Canada. Today, this morning, it's brisk. It's a little bit nippy. Looking at the weather and what the weather's doing, based on the fact that the weather has changed temperature-wise, I always think of guessing and predicting the weather, whether or not bad weather's on the way, is a matter of putting things into a bucket. So we have a temperature change. Yesterday warm, a little bit cooler today. That's one little thing in a bucket. That's like, that hasn't tipped the scale one way or the other, but it's something that goes in the bucket. We have another interesting thing going on. You can see this like clear as day behind me. So these beautiful clouds behind me, I don't know the technical name for them. I don't actually study up on the names of clouds. I know that there's people who will probably put it in the comments, and that's fine. I appreciate that if you do that. The look of these clouds is a dead giveaway for a change in the weather. Now it's not 100% guarantee. It could be something just passing through, and then who knows, could be nice and warm tomorrow. That could be the change. Typically, that's not what these clouds are. Oh, that's nice. Please. Maybe someone's going to come bust me because my dog's not on a leash. But typically, these kind of clouds are at the beginning of a change in the front. So there's either a high pressure, low pressure system combining, or warm air mixing with cold air. Now, I'm cheating a little bit because I know for a fact that later on today there's rain coming, and it's actually going to end up being snow, and it's a big change. The forecast predicts 4 days straight of snow. So that's kind of why I thought great opportunity to film this, so you can see these clouds, that typical kind of like almost like a washboard effect. That's very, very typical on the edge of a change in weather. And it's a great way to look at the clouds and use the clouds as a way to predict that maybe some bad weather's on the way. If you're out hiking on a multi-day trip, and maybe you checked the weather before you left, but you didn't really look very hard at the 4 or 5 day forecast, which is often wrong, by the way. And then you're on the 3rd day and you look up and you see these clouds, and it's a little bit colder than the warm day yesterday. Man, you've got some great information now that tells you there's a change coming, possible bad weather inbound. Okay, other ways to predict, I'm just going to pick up all this garbage that people left. Other ways to predict bad weather on the horizon would be if you see a change in wind or wind direction especially. So typically here in southern Alberta, we get winds coming from the west out that way, and they travel to the east. So east to west, or northwest to southeast. That's a typical wind flow pattern here in southern Alberta. If we got an unusual wind, and I can tell you right now, the way I'm standing, the wind is blowing from behind me that way. So that tells me something right off the bat. We got an unusual direction of wind, almost the opposite direction that it normally blows. There's a bunch of things in my toolbox. Changing temperature, these really funky clouds behind me, an unusual direction of wind. All right, now we've got enough information to make a judgment call. And whether that's like, you know, if you're on a multi-day trip and it's suddenly gonna dump snow on you out of nowhere, that's you know, either maybe you increase the speed of your trip and you start heading home faster, or it means you make a plan for hunkering down. There's certainly other things you can add to your list. Other ways to predict, if you've got a barometer, that's another great way. You can check the barometer if you see the pressure coming down, and as long as you've stayed in one place for the last 24 hours and you watch the barometer come down, then that's a good indication that weather is also changing. The funky thing about barometers and hiking in the outdoors is if you've got a barometer and you've been ascending in elevation, you're going to see pressure changes, and that could give you a false reading. So they're not always accurate while you're on the move, but they can be accurate if you've been sitting in one place for 24 hours and you keep the barometer at a constant temperature so that you don't get any false readings. That's a story for another day. For now, just look around, see what you can see, make a prediction. If you're wrong, oh well, you probably learned something. We'll check the temperature is like tomorrow. Maybe I'll make a video on that, and I'll see you in the next one. She won't get you. She's a good girl. Yeah, she won't attack you. Hello. Hi. Good morning.